session, we are not going to talk a lot about code. So if you are here to see code, this presentation is not for you. But we are here to see how we can create a better product if we know the basics of UX and UI as developers. And it doesn't matter if you work at a big company, on a startup, if you are a freelancer, if you are developing your own projects. The things that we are going to see today, I think that they will be very, very helpful for you and for your projects and maybe for your managers, your boss, etc. We will start with some theory. I know also developers don't like theory, but we will do only some very basic things, and then we will move on to examples, a lot of examples, and some practical things on how we can actually improve our products as developers. So very briefly, we are going to talk about UX and UI. When I say UX, I mean user experience, UI, user interface. We are going to talk about heuristics, what are they, how we can use them, and then we will continue with some more practical examples and some tips and advices, again, on how we can improve our products, but it's not only our products, how we can improve ourselves, again, as developers. I am Eleftheria. I am coming from Greece. And you can find me on my social media. I'm very active on Twitter. If you have any question in the end of this session and you're a bit shy to ask now, feel free to ask me later on social media or even on my email, whatever you prefer. Okay, let's start. UX and UI, user experience and user interface. Although there is an ocean of content out there trying to demystify these two terms, most of the content that you will find there is doing a poor job because they are only explaining things from one perspective. And usually this is the perspective of the user. But you're not the user, you're the developer, and maybe you also have more roles than a developer. So the thing that we will do differently here is to explain these two terms from the perspective both of the developer/designer and the perspective of the user. I'm going to start from the user's perspective because it's a bit easier to understand it, and probably you already know those things. So the user interface is what a user interacts with a product and what taps or clicks on, and the whole experience is localized in a device. So it's different if you have a laptop, if you have a Mac, if you have an iPhone, an Android, but the whole experience is localized on that device. On the other hand, the user experience is what the user feels when they interact with our product. Are they happy? Are they frustrated? And the whole experience can be is visible from their physical body. Like if we see a user holding a phone, if he's happy, then we probably know that the app has something nice or it works nicely. But if they are frustrated, we can understand that something bad is happening. And now let's go to the perspective of the developer or the designer. Here things can be a little bit more complicated, so I started with an analogy. We have this big icicle, and from very far away we can see only the tip of the icicle, right? This is the UI for a developer. It's the things that we can see, but it's not only that. To have an icicle, we don't have only the ice and the tip. We have a whole mountain underneath that. We have the weather. It has to be cold. It has to be icy. All those things makes the UX. So the UX is what the user feels, interacts with, and what holds everything together, whereas UI is only what we see. We can't have UI without UX, and UI is part of UX. So now let's try to give some more details about what UX really is. And from the user perspective, it can be both subjective and objective, but always the final goal is the same. And the final goal is to have ease products and satisfactory products. These two words, ease and satisfactory, are something that we will be talking a lot. So it can be subjective, like does the user cracking a smile when they are using our app? Are the icons and illustrations understandably enough? And are the animations good enough? Are they doing what they're supposed to do? And from the other hand, it can also be objective. So does the user actually accomplish their actions? And we have many examples here. Like one very common example is that we will give a service to a user and we will ask them, can you actually do that thing? And to be more specific, sometimes a very common example is with flight tickets. We have all those websites that you can buy flight tickets. But how fast can you do it? And even if you do it, will you be happy after completing this action? Maybe you are happy because you are going to a trip or something, but if you have to wait for confirmations, or if you can't find how to book an extra suitcase, or if you can't find if they provide food inside the airplane, I bet that in the end you won't be as happy if you had a website that you could do all those things fast and easily, and in every step you could see where you are and what you have to do next. But again, we will talk about those things in more detail in a bit. So, let's see another example of good and bad apps. I will start with a bad example, okay? Would you prefer a riding-sharing app that doesn't show you where you are in real time, doesn't show you where your driver is in real time, doesn't allow you to save your favorite destinations, or maybe to share your activity and where you are again in real time, doesn't allow you to pay in different ways like card, cash? Or would you prefer another riding-sharing app, and imagine that the UI is pretty similar, but this time you can save your favorite destinations, pay however you want, see everything in real time? And yeah, here I'm pretty sure that you know the answer to this. Now let's go to your product, something that you are developing. You, as a developer, know the product, and probably you can do everything fast and easily. But now try to give your product to someone else. And probably that someone else shouldn't be your mother, your partner, because they will think that your product is perfect as it is. Maybe you have a mother-in-law or something, an ex-boyfriend, like try to give them your product and see if they will have the same opinion as you. Can they do everything fast, with ease and satisfaction? This is the point. Okay, so I hope by now you have understood why UX is important, and it is because at its core, it's putting people before technology, and everything is around people. And in the end, if we have happy people, we will have happy bosses, and we will have, money, which is something that we usually want. Okay, now let's also see what a UX designer do and how we can do those things as developers as well. Before doing that, I have another small theory how it all started. So everything started with that man that you can see up there. He's Don Norman. He is the pioneer of UX. He started as an electrical engineer, and then he moved on as a designer and UX researcher for Apple. So now we have Apple and iOS as it is today. What he did differently is that he did a master's in psychology, and he observed how people interacted with technological products. So before that, obviously, people were building products, but the UX was not like it is today. He's the one that observed, and then those observations passed into Apple. This man also has a lot of books. If anyone is interested, you can find them for free on internet. The Design of Everyday Things is one book that I really recommend. You don't have to be a designer or have to have dedicated knowledge. You can really understand it. And the book doesn't only have examples related to technology. It also has some other examples like cups and plates, why they are like they are, and about cars and doors in cars, like why do you have the doors in the cars in that specific way. So you can find some pretty interesting things. Okay, we are closing the parentheses, and we are going back to our original question, which was, what does a UX designer do? And again, they are doing a lot of things, really a lot of things. And here I have a pyramid. We will start from the bottom to top. I'm not going to analyze everything, but I will give you some key of the things that they may be doing. So the first thing is user research and analysis. And in that stage, we have user interviews, user behavior studies, focus group surveys. And when we have all of those things, then we will continue with creating user personas, user stories, empathy maps. And again, when all those things are done, we will continue to the next stage, which is content strategy. Here we have writing product copy and microcopy, selecting the right wording. And although these things may seem a little bit boring, these are the things that have to be done. And when they are done, then we can move on to the information architecture. This is the lifeblood that connects everything together. This is where the UX researcher, the developer, and the UI designer will be connected. Here we have things such as card sorting, sitemaps, wireframe, user flows, etc. And on the top two stages, the interaction design and the visual design, I'm not going to give you a lot of details now because these two stages are mostly for UI designers, so we will see them in a bit. Okay, so we have covered UX. Let's quickly see what UI is in a little bit more depth, and then we will move on to the more practical tips. So, excuse me, UI. Yeah. A lot of people think, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of people think that UI is all about colors, maybe images, and maybe a little bit of typography. Right? Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not only that. It's not only colors and it's not only images. It's a lot more. And I'm going to give you some examples to persuade you on that. We have this. This is just a machine. We shout at that little machine. Maybe it's Alexa, maybe it's Siri, and it will give us answers. This is UI. It's an audible UI, but it is UI. And on the other hand, we also have this. All of you probably know that. We don't have like here fancy images, we don't have fancy typography, but it is a textual form of UI. Okay, now let's go back to our original question, what does a UI designer do? And I'm going back to the pyramid. This time we will focus on the top two layers, so we have the interaction design as well as the visual design. We have all the work and all the information from the researchers, and now it's time to build the UI. Another parenthesis here, what we usually do as developers is that we will start coding and coding and coding, which is okay, it's fun. But then we will reach a point, we will look at the UI, and we will understand that it's, you know, not so good. And then we will try to fix the UI, and as we are fixing the UI, we will also realize that some stuff, they are not working as they were supposed to work. This is not because your code is not okay. This is because the UX is not okay. So what I'm trying to say here is that first we should focus on the UX, then the UI, and then the coding part, and not the opposite thing. So, the UI and the interaction design. Here, yes, we will focus on buttons, on typography, on images, and on those small details, but also we have a lot more stuff. And the UI designer, in this case, should be familiar with typography, color theory, iconography, illustrations, visual hierarchy, and again, a lot more things. And if you continue to the visual design, here the focus is on possible variations of a screen, different workflows, how responsive are things, how they are really working. And the designer at this stage has to apply design patterns effectively, create component libraries, and establish design systems. These are just some examples. Some of those things will be applied always, some other things won't be applied always. And yeah, really, let's not forget about the responsiveness of things. Okay, now we have covered UX, we have covered UI, and I'm pretty sure that we have all realized what those things are and how they are connected. But as a quick recap, UI, it can be standalone without the UX. We have to have UX in order to have UI, and then we can move on to code. So let's continue now with heuristics. Heuristics is taking decisions with information that we already have. And we have some information from the product that we already have or for the product that we want to build. We have some information, but how we can make the best possible decisions. This is what we are going to see. I have a quote here that I really like from Don Norman, and it says, "Good design is actually a lot harder to notice than poor design, in part because good design fits our needs so well that the design is invisible, and we don't even notice when something is really, really good. We notice very easily when something is bad, and we will complain about that, but when it's something really cool, fun, and easy and satisfactory, we will probably just pass it, and that's okay. This is what you want for your products as well." Let's skip this. Okay, so we have numerous heuristics, and you can think of heuristics as a set of rules. Although we have a lot of them and they are like well established, we are going to see only 10 of them, and actually we are going to see the heuristic analysis. It's the third column. If anyone wants, like, you can go in depth on your own, but here we will cover only the last column, the heuristic analysis. And this is because the validity and the results that we are going to get are the best that we can have as developers, which means that we don't have like all the knowledge that the UX or a UI person might have. All right. Let's start with some more practical things. How to conduct an effective heuristic evaluation. First of all, define the scope of your evaluation and ask yourself, what do I want to test? Maybe this is one of the most crucial things, that we have to know what we want to test, and then we can test it. Know your end user. Who is this product for? Is it for you, for your friends, for some older people, some people from, I don't know, not your country, which means that they will have a different culture and different standards. Then choose the set of heuristics. Choose how you will test those things, and ask yourself which usability principles should be followed. Continue with the setup of an evaluation system and identifying issues. Ask yourself, how will evaluators assess and report usability? And last but not least, analyze and summarize your findings. Again, if you haven't summarized your findings, then you cannot move on. All right, so finally, we are here and we will see the 10 examples of the 10 usability heuristics. This set of rules are not created by me, of course. They are created by Jakob Nielson and Don Norman in 1995. These two guys, I don't know what exactly they did, but they came up with these 10 rules that we've been using since then in order to improve our products. And with these 10 rules, everyone can improve their product. It doesn't matter if they already have shipped a product or some new features. It doesn't matter if you've been working alone or in a team. These are the things that you can absolutely do. All right, the first one is visibility of system status. Imagine having an app or a website. Okay, let's talk actually about our phones. The first thing that we do when we click our phone is that we will have some basic information. We will have date, time, we will have notifications, we will have, I don't know, maybe an image or something. Now imagine someone taking you all of those stuff. So as soon as you light up your phone, you don't see the time, you don't see the notification, you don't see the signal. How would you feel? Like, I think that you will feel kind of naked, right? We want those things. We want all the basic information to be there in our products. And you know what is basic. So keep all those basic stuff in there, in the front page, or as soon as your phone lights up, or as soon as your app lights up, have the basic information that the user wants to see. This is the first tip. The second one is match between the system and the real world. People presume how something will work based on what they already know, and people spend 90–95% of their time using other products. So they know, or they think that they know, how will your product work. Don't change everything, and don't change everything drastically, because then people will come to your product and they will not know how to use it. Here we have like 2 examples, like the skeuomorphism design, which is creating things on how they used to be in real life. And even if now we open our laptop or our phones, we can see that we will have a compass, a folder, a bin, and the icons are exactly the same as they are in real life. This is the skeuomorphism design, and sometimes we want to use it when things are very complicated, and we can't, like, show them in any other way. But it's not only that. This is just one option. We now have also the flat design and some other like similar stuff. But always try to match between the system and the real world. The next tip is user control and freedom. Either we want it or not, our user will make some mistakes. We do think that we have the perfect product, but our user sometimes will make some errors, and it's okay. That's why we need to have an emergency exit or something like that. This is an X button, a close button, a back button, or a revert, an undo. We always want something like that. Because, again, because you know your product, you may think that you don't need those things, but it's also easy, like, all right, like it's easy to add an undo button, an X button, and close a back button, something like that. You always want those things. And let's go to the 4th rule, which is one of my favorites. I have 2 favorite rules. This one is the first one. I'll show you in a bit the other one. So it's consistency and standards. Just because something is different, it doesn't mean that it's meaningful. It doesn't mean that we want it. You may have an awesome idea for a product, for a startup, for an app, whatever. Maybe you think it's really cool, but the key word here is you. It's not only you. You're developing something for other people. Is that thing useful? Give it to some people. We talked about people before. So give it to some people and try to really understand if your idea or if this new design, if this new functionality is something that people will really enjoy. And yeah, sometimes also when we talked about consistency, try to have, for example, everywhere the same icons. If you have like a bin or a delete action, always keep the same delete icon. And I know that it sounds simple, but trust me, I've seen so many apps and products and websites that sometimes they have a bin it's full of color and then it will be black and white. No, you always want the same thing. And also, it's not only with icons and designs, it's also about the text that you are using, the words you are using. Again, the same example. If I want to delete something, use everywhere the same word, delete, not erase, not something else. Delete is delete. Use everywhere the same. This is consistency. Another example, again, with colors. I think that with colors is the most common one. Sometimes you will say, okay, I will use the blue color. And then, yes, you start using blue, and then another shade of blue, and another shade of blue, and another shade of blue. No, stick to one color. And we will talk about colors in a bit again. Okay, so let's continue with our next tip, which is error prevention. Okay, we have 2 kinds of errors, and it's slips and mistakes. Slips is the ones that your users are going to do mistakes because they are maybe in a hurry, maybe they didn't really watching what they were doing or what they were typing. And we talked about that. In that case, for your errors, you will have an emergency exit, you will have an undo action, something like that. And that's okay. But on the other hand, we have the mistakes, and this is where the problem is. If your users are making mistakes, it's because it's our fault as developers. It's because we didn't realize how to do something, and that doesn't give satisfaction to our users. So we want things to be as simple as possible. If you notice that your user is doing a lot of mistakes, then go back with your team and try to change some things, and then reevaluate them and put them out in the public once again. But really just take a step back and try to fix those small things. We also have recognition rather than recall. Our memory has 2 types, has recognition and recall. We obviously always want recognition. And recognition is when we see something and we can easily recognize it and then move on. For example, if we are searching for something in a website, it's much easier if it has autocomplete, or if we can see some icons with that, or maybe we can see some additional information in order to know what exactly to click on or search on. So this is something that we really, really want. On the other hand, what we don't want is recall. Recall is when you have to go back in your memory, in those chunks of memory, and try to find some missing information. Like when you're trying to recall a date or when you're trying to recall a name, we really, really don't want those things. And here I have an example from Coursera because I think that they are doing a nice job, but obviously there are other websites that, again, they are doing a really good job at recognition. Okay, and let's move on to flexibility and efficiency of use. This is our 7th tip. We will have different kind of users, and we want to have different kind of users, right? We will have the first-time users, and we will have the power users. The power users are the ones who are probably using our product a lot, and we want users to use our product a lot, so that's awesome. And maybe we have the people that are in between, not first-time users, but also not power users. So the key here is to provide something for everyone, so everyone will be happy in the end. The first-time users probably want things to be easy. Maybe they want more information, maybe they want to understand what they click on, maybe they want to see more things. So try to provide something about those people. On the other hand, you will have the power users. They don't care so much about information, they don't care so much about seeing things. They want to do things fast and easily. They care about productiveness and, again, being fast. Try to provide something about these people as well. Maybe they want to extend your product, maybe they want to connect it with something else. Give them the tools to do that. And of course, for everyone else in the middle, try to provide what they want. If you don't know what these people want, that's why you have your testing users. And we will talk about testing users in a bit as well. Okay, let's move on to the 8th tip, aesthetic and minimal design. This is the second favorite of mine. The previous one was about standards and consistency. So, let me give you some practical examples here. We all have seen some websites full of colors, full of different typographies, and sometimes that can be cool, but not always. When we just want to do something quickly, when we want like a simple action or something, we don't care so much about colors, and we really don't care so much about fancy typography. Of course, it depends on your product and what your end goal is, but if you want something simple, then go with simple stuff. The first tip here would be to use plain white color. If you are an expert on design, okay, try to mix colors, etc. You know what you're doing. But in any other case, please stick to white colors. Also, about typography, I know there are some really cool and handy, like beautiful types and typefaces and font families and all this stuff, but please do not use them. Try to stick with something minimal. Maybe we've seen it everywhere, but we've seen everywhere the same font sizes because they are practical and because we can actually read them. I can give you another example as well, like Instagram. It has like some font sizes that personally I cannot read them, like the one with the calligraphy. Like, why are they using that? And can you actually read those things? And if you're using it in your own Instagram, like really try to read those things. So the same goes for your website, or if you have a personal portfolio or something like that, stick to those simple things. So let me recap. We have white color. We also have the font size that we don't want something super calligraphy. And the third one is about the font size. Okay, some of you here, I can see that you are very young and probably you can see very clear and you can read things clearly, but trust me, you're not the only one in this world, okay? Maybe we have some older people, and again, I can see here some people that, like, I don't want to offend anyone, but you know, we are not everyone like 20 years old and we can see everything very clear. So, have a bigger font size. Trust me on that. it's not difficult. If it's on 12 points or something, do it 16, do it 20. We want a bigger font size, okay? That's my third tip here. Trust me, if you are like redoing your project or whatever, do those things and let me know about the results. Okay, ninth tip, help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. We talked about that a bit. Either we want it or not, our users will make some mistakes, will make some errors. We covered some ways on how we can fix those issues, but some other things that we can do is to help them recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. What this means is, you can also see in the examples above, never do those silly comments like error, line, blah, blah, blah. Even if you are a developer and you're using another product, there is absolutely no case that you will know what that thing means. So always try to give them the reason why something is not working. If they are trying to upload a PNG image, you can say, okay, my system doesn't work with PNG images, please try to upload that particular image. Or if the size is too big, you can specify that I can only take this specific size. Always try to provide something to your users. So in the end, they will use your product better and they will be more satisfied after using it. And last but not least, we have the 10th rule or 10th tip, help and documentation. Yes, we want to strive to have the perfect product, but because we have our first-time users, because we have some new things, maybe because you're doing something very unique that no one else is doing right now, maybe it's good to also have some documentation, some tutorial, or something like that. And it doesn't mean that it has to be something very complicated or it has to be something very big. Even small things, small like details or pop-ups, sometimes they can do some great work. And some examples here are Trello or Slack. They are doing a pretty good job. They have like these small pop-ups or whatever, and they can cover the big chunks that we don't want, like big documentations and stuff like that. These were our 10 rules, but we are not finished. We have a few more things to cover, and this will be some really, really small tips. The do's and don'ts of UX. Some things that you should absolutely do, and some things that you absolutely shouldn't do. Okay, let's start. The first one, don't assume you know what user wants. No, never do that, and this is why we have our testing users. A common question here is, okay, but what do I do if I don't have users? If you are working in a big company, you can always go to other people from other departments and ask them, can you test my product? This is always a good solution that doesn't require, a lot of money. Now, if you have a bigger budget, then you can really find testing users that they can use your product. This can be either virtually or not. There are websites, for example, that they will take care of everything. They will find for you users, and you can specify how you want those users. Maybe you want the users to speak only Romanian, or maybe you want the users to be from a specific part of a world, or maybe you want only females. So there are websites that they will provide you with the exactly demographics and maybe knowledge that you want them to have. And also another thing is that you can actually go in a street and start asking people, can you test my product? This sounds a bit weird, but it's also something that you can do, and usually it's free. Okay, don't follow the Hippo at the room, and Hippo stands from the highest paid person's opinion. Yes, your boss is paying you, but they don't pay you because they want you to say stuff that they want to hear. You should have your opinion, and you should stick to your opinion. You should have some backups, like know what you're saying, but don't follow the Hippo in the room. Do make the time and effort for user research. Don't just create a list of methods to check off. It's not a to-do list. Don't prototype too soon, even if you're planning to test. And do focus on what people do rather than on what people say. This is very crucial because sometimes we will do something, we will not think a lot about it, and in the end maybe we'll say, okay, yeah, that was fine, that was okay. But how was the process? what we were feeling when we were doing that, not only in the end, but when we were doing the whole thing. If you can do only one thing, then do conduct user testing. Don't overlook existing insight from customer care representatives. And actually, if you have the opportunity in your company or whatever you are doing to check the support system, not all companies have that and not all products have that, but first of all, you should have a support system. And secondly, just really take some time to observe what people are saying in the support or in their questions, because you will find things that you didn't think of. And I recently realized that about myself as well. I started checking the support system for the company that I work for. By the way, I work at Hashnot. And people were asking some questions that I was like, okay, maybe for me it's obvious because I know the product and I work there, but that doesn't mean that it's obvious for everyone else. And maybe something for me, the classic one, maybe something for me that it's a feature, for someone else is a bug. So really try to see what people say on your support or on their questions. Do collaborate, you are not alone. And do find someone qualified to do your research or become a bit more qualified by yourself. And I hope that with these tips, I helped you in this direction. Now the last part, and then I will leave you to go for your lunch break. The last part is some tips about the good and the bad of a UI designer. And we will see two columns, the bad and the good UI designer, and you can pick which side you think you are. Okay, let's keep that. The designer's mindset. So, the good designer listens to everyone from decision makers, team members, and stakeholders, whereas the bad one judges and suggests solutions all the time. You can pick a side. The good one questions the status quo and digs deep to find out real problems and needs, whereas the bad one follows the rule, we've always done it that way, and tries to fix symptoms only. Rings a bell? The good one takes time to ask about what is missing and is always uncertain about his understandings and designings, whereas the bad one follows his assumptions and is always certain about his work. The good one has many solutions and ideas and tries always to find issues and flaws in his work, whereas the bad one has only one idea to invest his time and convince others that he's right. Also, the good one loves working with others, revisits his thoughts, and has something to learn from everyone that he collaborates with, whereas the bad one loves to work alone, tries to confirm his thoughts, and thinks he knows everything. The good one loves to be wrong and seeks feedback, whereas the bad one loves to be always right and seeks praise. The good one leads, and the bad one follows. Pick your side. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me here or later. Yep, that's it. Thank you. Okay, oh, yes. Yeah.
Pay for user for websites and so on. But let's say you are a student that just finished, I don't know, your college and you want to start something or on your own, and you have some ideas which maybe are not so simplistic that you can go to a friend or something like that. Maybe they are very more specific than that. How do you find your users?
Yes, well, I could give you an answer, but then you said that maybe it's not a simple idea, because if we were talking about something simple that people could easily understand, then I would suggest that since you are out of college or university, you will have still a big group of friends, so you could ask your friends to check up your new idea. Or you could go to a forum like on Discord or somewhere, I don't know, and find a dedicated group and ask your questions there, or your ideas, validate your ideas there. But since you said that maybe you have a more complicated idea, then actually I'm not sure, and I'm not sure if I can give you an answer. Maybe in these cases you should find some more focused groups, like maybe some other developers, or I don't know what these ideas are about, but maybe you could search it a little bit more and try to think of who is going to use your product or your idea. And if you find those people, then you could validate your ideas with those people. Do you have any other questions? Okay, I know you want to eat and you want to have lunch, but if you have like anything, okay. All right, no questions. Okay, you can ask me on social media if you want, or I will be there for a few more hours. Thank you very much once again. Have a nice day.